Hello there, AT&T employees, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Sam, and I moderate these weekly webinars. In just a second, we're going to be joined by Wesley Boudreau, who's going to be giving you a quick rundown of how the entire paperwork process works when you decide to retire from AT&T. He'll go over all of the need-to-knows with you, and then afterward, if we have time, he'll also answer some questions. While he's speaking to you, I will be entering some links. You're going to see them pop up on your screen. Feel free to click on those. They're very valuable resources, we think, that you could take advantage of. One is simply a link to book a complimentary appointment with us and get on one of our financial advisors' calendars to speak to them about your retirement. Another is our YouTube and our LinkedIn, where you can follow us for much more AT&T related content. We post daily, so please follow us there. And as a quick reminder, we are not affiliated nor endorsed whatsoever by AT&T. We are a completely independent group of financial advisors, so please keep that in mind as you're listening along today. And without further ado, let's jump right into it with Wesley Boudreau.
All right, thank you very much for that introduction, Samantha. And like she said, we are going to be talking about the AT&T pension process today. For some of you that are approaching retirement or looking to make that decision here as we see rates dropping finally again, or for those of you that unfortunately are going through potential layoffs with RTO earlier than what you expected. We'll go through kind of the process and what that looks like for everybody on this webinar. A quick reminder before we jump into it, even though the retirement group has worked extensively with AT&T folks for the past 30 plus years, does not mean we're endorsed or employed by AT&T, but myself and some of our other AT&T focused advisors have extensive experience working with you, transitioning you into retirement. So any questions you have on the pension plan or other plans like the 401k, we'll be happy to get into that with you. So a couple of things we're going to go through today. I'm not going to touch on all this right now on this one slide, but we're essentially going to talk about the pension process, how to go through and calculate or estimate your pension plan, all the way through getting the paperwork and how to get that turned in, and what those next steps look like and the timing process around it as well. So first and foremost, in order to calculate or estimate your pension, you're going to need to go into net benefits and log into your account there. And when you get into net benefits, you'll likely see two different links, if you would, on the left-hand side, one for your 401k and one for your pension. So we're looking at the pension in this case. Go ahead and click on that. You'll get into there, and you'll see some tabs up at the top. One of those tabs is going to be estimate, in order for you to go in there and estimate or calculate your pension. And again, it's an estimate, because you can go through there and model different changes and look at different dates. So maybe you're saying, okay, what if I were to retire and commence my benefits in December of this year? You go through and do that, they'll automatically have the correct interest rates in there because it is for this year. However, if you want to go in there and model something for next year or a future year, you can go in there and manually adjust those interest rates, because we don't know for certain what those interest rates will be until usually about around Christmas time or so. Remember, AT&T, for the lump sum calculation, their interest rates they use are from November of the prior year. So those interest rates are updated usually about the third week of the following month. So right around Christmas or so, we will know what the interest rates will be for 2025. But again, I can give you some of those, if you call us, we can give you some of those to estimate it as we get closer to it. Right now, we are quite a bit lower than we were last November, about maybe 70 basis points on the second segment and about 100 plus basis points on the first segment. So for those of you looking to retire now and defer or commit your benefits later, you can see, anywhere from, maybe the 6 to 8% bump or increase in your pension just by waiting until 2025 in this case. And again, make sure you go and save those estimates so you don't have to go back and redo it. If you go in there, you can actually save, I think there's about 3 different columns you can save, 3 or 4, but I think it's 3 that you can have on one sheet if you would. So you can see how those look side by side. You can compare the options of different retirement dates or also different distributions, whether you're taking a lump sum versus an annuity versus joint survivor. We'll get into some of those in just a moment here as well. So when you go through there and you've kind of run your different estimates and you're happy with one that you're looking to pick, and you are looking to retire, then it becomes the collection process and starting to actually get that paperwork put together. So there's a collect tab up near that estimate tab, and go ahead and click on that. Go through there, and first and foremost, it's going to ask you to confirm your address and your information, whether you're single or married. Make sure you got that information. Your spouse's date of birth is correct in there. Then go through the payment options. So again, it's going to depend upon your division, but if most of you are going to have a lump sum or an annuity option. And on that annuity option, it could be, excuse me, It could be just a single life annuity. It could be joint and survivor, so you're actually making sure that your spouse is paid out if something were to happen to you. So you need to go through there and make sure if you're doing joint and survivor, you know what continuation you want, whether you want them to get 100% continuation, 75%, 50%. So again, what that means is if you're looking at a single life annuity, let's say $3,000 a month example, but you did a joint survivor, it's not going to be 3,000. It's going to be less than that because AT&T is having to pay out over the course of 2 lives, so there's a higher probability of one of you living longer than the other. So keep that in mind, and we can run through those in a cash flow analysis report if you need to see those side by side. And then, excuse me, if you are taking the annuity, then you have to focus on potential tax withholdings and getting that set up on federal and state. We'll talk a little bit more about this later. And your direct deposit information, so your bank information, if you're wanting that to be direct deposited, so you get that monthly paycheck coming in. And then once you've reviewed everything through there, you can confirm and submit that. And if you're single, you're able to actually go through there and DocuSign it and do everything electronically. If you're married, then you are going to be required to have spousal consent, even if you're not changing the beneficiaries and you're still having your spouse in there. That's not just an AT&T rule; that's a ERISA guideline. So if you're married, you have to have spousal consent because you're making a lifelong decision, and especially if you're taking a lump sum, you're have the potential to change your beneficiaries. So they're signing off on that essentially. This is a quick example, just a screenshot we took to kind of give you an idea of what you're going to see once you go through this process. You'll see the three segments where you got the check boxes showing you what you've gone through. So going through there and estimating it, collecting it, and getting that submitted. So if you have any questions on this, just give us a call. We can walk you through that as well and make sure we can do a screen grab to make sure you're right before you hit that final button, because I know a lot of people do get nervous about this, as it is a quite a lifelong decision in this case. Now, excuse me, as far as the election information, this is some stuff we kind of already alluded to, but again, you want to review and verify your election information once you get that. So review your pension benefit election authorization packet, which is generated. Make sure that all the information on there is correct. So again, even though you went through this, make sure that what they're printing up for you is accurate and there's no mistakes on there. If you want to get more detail on your pension plan, you can find it with the SPD, which is the summary plan description. You can get that on the website as well. That's going to give you all the details as to how the pension is operated, what's the calculation to get your benefits, what are the different payment choices, things like that. If you have questions, want to review that, myself or one of the other advisors here can definitely walk you through that. We're well versed in those, and that way you can kind of see what it looks like under the hood essentially, and how this process works. Because again, different divisions and different pay grades are treated a little bit differently in the AT&T pension plan process. So you do want to review and verify your tax withholdings if you're looking at taking that pension as an annuity. Again, if you're taking a lump sum, you're not going to need this because it's going to be a lump sum check going out to a record keeper. As far as the elections there, you want to make sure that you've got your federal and state taken care of and confirm that everything there is accurate. I actually had a phone call with somebody just yesterday. Nobody we worked with before kind of called in, had already been getting his pension, and was actually kind of upset because he was getting hit with an IRS penalty because he hadn't been filing estimated taxes. So keep that in mind. You're not required to, but you should be having withholding so it matches what your tax rate's going to be. If not, you're going to have to make sure you're paying some of your taxes on a quarterly basis to estimate those in order to avoid some of those penalties. And again, you can change future elections there as well. So keep that in mind. If you got any major issues like a name change or something like that, you may have to fill out a W-4P form. Again, you'll see that whenever you go through that process there as well. Now, as far as that spousal consent that I mentioned before, again, essentially what's happening is because you're making this lifelong decision, and especially if you're doing a rollover to an IRA, you're essentially, your spouse is saying, hey, I'm giving up control of this sort of. I'm signing off on this, letting you do what you're doing with your pension in this case. So even if you've got he or she named as a beneficiary, you still have to go through that for security purposes. And that spouse, what's going to happen is you guys are going to have to go to a notary and have him or her get her signature notarized. And if you're in California, it's a little bit different. It needs to be a notary that provides a jurat, which is essentially signing off on the quality of the paperwork, saying that they review the paperwork as well, and the paperwork is good. Whereas a normal notary just signing off saying, hey, I witnessed this person, they're signing, they are who they are in this case. Another thing to kind of be aware of is, if you've got something outside the pension, maybe you've you're a highly compensated employee, you've got some stock options, maybe deferred compensation, non-qualified pension options, IRS 415 limits to look at. Not necessarily with AT&T a lot, but there may be some NUA to look at, which is net unrealized depreciation. So if you have any of these questions, give us a call. We can kind of go through that with you as well and make sure that we tie this all together in your overall financial plan. Now, when you go through this process, it's fairly easy, and you can retain copies with PDFs where you can print them if you want. But you do want to make sure you retain all your copies, so you've got those records for reference, and you got those time-stamped if you have any questions or any concerns as you go through that process as well. You want to make sure that you return all the pages. Again, if you're doing the e-signature for somebody single, it's a little bit easier. But when you go through that, you want to make sure that you return all the pages so you avoid any disruptions as far as a page missing. I go back a couple of years. I have seen where somebody made one error on a date of birth, and it caused them to have to go through and redo the paperwork, and that caused them to roll into the next year, and they wouldn't go back and adjust that, and it cost them quite a bit in their lump sum calculation because the interest rates had risen from one year to the next. So again, be very careful about that. Follow the previous steps we talked about. Return your packet at least 45 days prior to your benefit commencement date or your retirement date if you're looking to get that process as soon as possible once you leave. You can do it as soon as the day before you retire, but what's going to happen is that's going to push all the processing off, and you're not going to get your check or your first distribution until maybe a month or two later. If you get this in 45, 60 days prior, then you should be good and ready to go as soon as you walk out that door. And again, it's just if there's not sufficient time to process this, it may cause a delay, as we mentioned here. Now, all of this is, again, that process of what it means to go through the pension paperwork. But before we get to that pension paperwork, it's really important to review your overall situation. I talked to you before about running a financial plan. Right now, about 3/4 of Americans over 50 don't have a written plan. If you can spend about 10 to 15 minutes with us gathering some data, we can take a couple days. We'll get back a detailed financial plan or cash flow analysis for you, so we can run through that and help you determine, hey, is my retirement date that I'm looking at with AT&T accurate? Should I do that? Should I work longer? Should I defer my pension so I get a better interest rate for the lump sum calculation? What are the best choices on my 401k? How's the healthcare, AT&T healthcare retiree benefits work? How's my life insurance continuation work? We can go through all those different items, but it's important to go through this prior to getting to that actual pension election stage, because once we've gone through this, we can help you determine the best pension options and walk you through that process as well. Now, a quick reminder for those of you, even though we have worked with AT&T for a long time, but those of you may be new on this webinar or don't know who we are, the Retirement Group is an independent financial advisory firm that focuses on working with corporate employees. We've been doing this for 35 plus years, and one of the first companies we started working with was AT&T. So we've been doing that for quite a while with you guys. I've been through a lot of different changes, unfortunately, through the company, and seen what happens with a lot of these different restructuring. And I know we're going through a lot of that right now with the RTO. So if you have any questions on there, just give us a call. We can walk you through that and run that plan to show you what your options are. Offices throughout the country, so rest assured if you need to sit down with somebody face-to-face, we can likely accommodate that. But obviously this day and age, we can do web meetings, phone calls, email communication, whatever is preferred for you. Just let us know. We do provide that complimentary cash flow analysis I mentioned. Even if you've taken us up on this in the years past, if it's been over a year or two, definitely circle back because a lot of things have changed with interest rates, with the market. We can go through that and update it with you as well. And if this is something we do as complimentary, just with the hopes that when it comes time for retirement, you throw our hat in the ring if you have questions or want help in managing those accounts. And I think we had a previous slide we talked about on the lump sum situation where you are going to send that to a custodian. Just so you know, the Retirement Group, we clear through both Charles Schwab and Fidelity. So even if you've been working with AT&T and want to keep that at Fidelity, you can actually do so with the Fidelity IRA, and we can help you manage that through that process. So with that, we're going to wrap this up, see if we got just one question. It looks like I see popped up through here. But before we get to that, if you have any questions, you can always reach us at info@theretirementgroup.com. You can call us at 800-900-5867. There's a couple QR codes up here, so if you want to follow along with us on LinkedIn, there's one, or if you want to get into schedule a call with myself or one of our other AT&T focused advisors, you can get into our calendars there as well. So the one question, we'll get wrapped up here. So one question coming in, it kind of alludes to what I talked about before. It's saying, do I have to take my pension when I retire because I might work elsewhere? Okay, so what this is probably alluding to is somebody is maybe retiring and then going to work somewhere else. They don't necessarily need that money. Maybe they're going to work another year or two or three or five somewhere else, or maybe unfortunately they've gotten caught up in the RTO and they they want to work out the rest of their career somewhere else, and they don't necessarily want or need that pension. Obviously, if you're going to go in there, leave AT&T and start working somewhere else, a week or a couple months later, and you're getting a paycheck, and then you get a pension coming in every month, that's going to be potentially putting you into a higher tax bracket. So it could be kind of productive, where you could be throwing some money away in taxes. Now, if you're looking at converting that to a lump sum and rolling it over, that may be something you still want to look at doing. You can do that as soon as you retire and commence those benefits. But it also gets into the aspect of where interest rates are. So, for instance, if somebody were retiring right now and interest rates were dropping for the next year, we tell them to hold off and commence their benefits later into next year, so they have a bump in that lump sum. And it could be that, again, you're saying, hey, I want the pension, but I want to defer it until I fully retire from where I am. There's also some age penalties to be aware of. And there's also a point where you don't want to keep deferring your pension after you hit a certain age. You're not going to get much bang for your buck beyond that. So again, these are all things we can look at one-on-one with that cash flow analysis and kind of show you what the optimal strategy is as far as when to pull the trigger on that pension. Even if you retire, you don't necessarily have to do it immediately, unless again you're a bit older. In some cases, you're going to need to commence that pretty soon after. So with that, I want to thank everybody for taking a little bit of time with us today. If you have any questions, like I said, just 800-900-5867. We look forward to talking to you, and we hope you have a great day.